I want you to imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a pond, skipping stones. You flick your wrist, watch the first stone glide smoothly across the water. You try again, and it skips 3 times. Encouraged, you focus harder, grip the next stone tighter, throw with all your strength. But instead of skipping, it sinks straight to the bottom. The irony is clear. The harder you tried, the worse the result. That's the effort of control paradox. The strange truth that sometimes pushing harder doesn't get you closer to your goal. It pushes you further away. This paradox shows up everywhere in life. The more desperately you chase sleep, the more restless you become. The harder you try to be liked, the more awkward you seem. The more you force creativity, the more blocked you feel. Control, when applied with brute effort, can backfire. Consider Maria, who struggled with insomnia. She read every tip, set strict bedtime rules, even forced herself to lie still in the dark for hours. The harder she tried to make herself sleep, the more anxious she grew, and the less sleep she got. It wasn't until she practiced letting go, reading a book, breathing deeply, allowing rest to come naturally, that sleep finally returned. Trying harder made her worse. Releasing effort made her better. Psychologists call this the ironic process theory. Daniel Wegner's research showed that when we deliberately try to suppress certain thoughts, they often rebound stronger. He famously told participants, "Don't think about a white bear." The result? Most people thought about white bears more than ever. Effortful control often intensifies the very thing we want to escape. This paradox is also why athletes talk about being in the zone. When they're overthinking every move, they stumble. But when they trust their training, release control, and allow flow to take over, their best performance emerges. Flow, described by psychologist Miha Lee, isn't about trying harder. It's about merging skill with surrender. Effort without ease collapses. Even in relationships, the paradox plays out. Think of someone on a first date trying too hard to impress. Every joke is rehearsed, every gesture calculated. Instead of creating connection, the effort feels forced. Authenticity, the relaxed, unguarded self, is what draws people in. By trying less to control the impression, they actually make the best impression. Why does this happen? Because life often responds better to alignment than to force. Effort is necessary, but effort without balance becomes strain. Strain clouds judgment, tightens the body, and narrows vision. It blinds us to the very conditions that would allow success. It's like clutching a bird in your hand. Hold it gently and it rests with you. Squeeze too hard and it flees. Take another story. Daniel, a violinist preparing for a major audition. He practiced obsessively, hours each day, until his muscles ached. On audition day, his hands trembled, his bow slipped, his sound cracked. Afterward, his teacher told him, "You practiced hard, but not well. You forced the music instead of letting it breathe." The next time, Daniel changed his approach. Shorter, mindful practice, more rest, more trust. At his next performance, the music flowed. His success came not from extra strain, but from less of it. Philosophy has long hinted at this paradox. The Taoist tradition speaks of Wu Wei, effortless action, the art of flowing with the current rather than forcing against it. In Tao Te Ching, Laozi wrote, "By letting it go, it all gets done. The world is won by those who let it go. But when you try and try, the world is beyond winning." Thousands of years before modern psychology, wisdom already pointed to the futility of overeating. Even in modern life, the effort of control paradox can creep into our smallest habits. Take work. You might stay up all night, cramming to finish a project, pushing yourself to the limit. But fatigue lowers your focus, errors multiply, and the work suffers. Had you worked less, rested more, you might have produced something better. The paradox reveals itself again. Effort without balance undermines itself. The danger isn't in effort itself. Effort is vital to growth. The danger is in the illusion that effort alone guarantees results. Sometimes the key is less force and more wisdom. So how do we apply this to daily life? First, by learning to notice when effort tips into strain. Ask yourself, am I tightening, clenching, forcing, or am I engaged, present, aligned? Awareness is the first release valve. Second, by practicing surrender in small ways. Try meditation, noticing thoughts without fighting them. Try play, doing something for joy rather than achievement. Try trust delegating a task instead of micromanaging it. These small releases retrain the mind to see that letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining balance. And third, by redefining success. Instead of measuring effort by intensity, measure it by effectiveness. Sometimes the most productive hour is the one where you worked with ease. Sometimes the best decision is the one that came when you stopped obsessing. The effort of control paradox teaches us that harder isn't always better. Sometimes harder is just harder. Real progress often comes from finding the middle way. Effort paired with ease, action paired with surrender. So tonight, ask yourself, where am I straining too much? Where am I gripping so tightly that the very thing I want is slipping away? And what would happen if I softened my hold, trusted the process, and allowed flow to return? Because sometimes the bravest move isn't to push harder, it's to let go. And in that letting go, you might discover that life responds not to force, but to freedom.